I remember 19th of April 2010, I was sitting in a park and I had 250 rupees in my pocket. I was just thrown out of the job. That moment taught me that it can't go lower than this.
Ladies and gentlemen, namaste. My name is Ankit Jhamb.
Happens to be the Chief Learning Officer of Grant Thornton, already written 10 books, who is an athlete, who's a marathon runner, somebody who's a health freak. When you come from a lower middle class family, you understand the importance of what it means to have money in your pocket.
I grew up with not much intellect and much respect for myself, as mediocre folks will be. I don't have a glamorous degree, no excellent pedigree of education. I wasn't the most smartest, not the most brightest, not the most wisest, but yeah, I was the most passionate of all.
But I think you have already published 4 books. You're a Chief Learning Officer.
The last 10, 12 odd years, I think I've been able to figure myself out. The confusion is less now, the clarity is a little more, but I think it's a good space to be in. You need to have a value proposition. You need to offer the world something, some skill, some craft.
What would be those nodal points in your life?
First time when I decided to run a marathon, I ran about 10 half marathons. First time when you realize that there is more potential than you think you have. First time you realize that you are self-limiting in nature. First time you realize that there is a past baggage which you're carrying and there are cages which you built for yourself. All of that came to me on the roads.
The Gen Zs of the world, they have a different ways of looking at the world.
We're coming to Gen Z.
They are much clearer about what they want, what they don't want.
They have a lot of things going in their favor. Awareness and confidence and sometimes clarity, sometimes just the candidness to walk out of things. What they don't have is consistency. What they don't have is discipline. What they don't have is embracing monotony. Generations will always be different. When Amitabh Bachchan's mother in the movies would say that Zamana kharab hai, we're saying the same thing.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, the XMonks Drive. I'm your host, Gaurav Arora. Today, I'm going to get into a conversation with someone that I really admire, somebody that I draw my inspiration from, who is an athlete, who's a marathon runner, somebody who's a health freak, happens to be the Chief Learning Officer of Grant Thornton. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ankit Jhamb. And today we are going to take a deeper dive in the world of consistency, productivity, what it means to work with Gen Zs. Hey Ankit, thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you here, my friend.
Thank you, Gaurav. Always look forward to meeting you.
You know, Ankit, I've always looked at you somebody who's very accomplished, who's very consistent, somebody who's an author. I think you've already published 4 books.
Yeah.
You're a Chief Learning Officer. And I personally believe that behind every successful story, there are phases where a person struggles with self. Very curious to know, who is Ankit behind that CLO? Who is Ankit behind that author?
Okay. Very smart of you to start this with such a profound question, who is Ankit? Yet not figured out completely, but yeah, we all have stories. I would confess that my story is one of a self-identity crisis or confusion of the self. I grew up with not much intellect and much respect for myself. Sometimes I tell people that I was the average of the averages. But at some point of time, you do realize that you have to find a place for yourself in the world. And I wasn't the most smartest, not the most brightest, not the most wisest, but yeah, I was the most passionate of all, is what I can say. So at some point of time, maybe around 25th year of my life, 28th, I had this realization that I will have to crack and make something out of this life.
Yeah.
I don't have a glamorous degree, no excellent pedigree of education. So one comes with zero baggage, but that goes against you and sometimes for you. Thankfully, it went for me. So that purpose sometimes is very strong, that you got to figure yourself out. And that figuring yourself out, while it's a long process, but yeah, the last 10, 12 odd years, I think I've been able to figure myself out.
Yeah.
And hence the battle with consistency, discipline, and finding your own place in the madness of the world around. So in one line, I would say that I was confused because I didn't know who I was. The confusion is less now. The clarity is little more, but I think it's a good space to be in.
Yeah. I think that's what I've always appreciated in you, Ankit. I've been following your journey for the last 8 years that we have been friends. Those cups of black coffees that we have consumed together, those conversations around psychology, around what it means to be a human, the tussle that we have with ego and the identity. That's the kind of conversation that I've always appreciated. And I think what I really admire in you is your ability to simplify those concepts that people find it extremely difficult to understand, to look at. If you were to look back in your life, Ankit, and look at defining moments that continue to change the trajectory of your life and help you become who you are today, what would be those 1, 2, 3 nodal points in your life?
I think I could definitely think of a few. The first one, Gaurav, definitely is for the first time when I decided to run a marathon. And completely no sports background, a flat feet, didn't know what to do. And you also don't know what you're good for, what are your core strengths. So then you think that, okay, let me just throw myself into a different zone of life altogether. And for some weird reason, I wanted to run a marathon. And completely without training and no background, I started learning discipline. I started figuring out that there are voices in the head. Voices in the head influence behaviors. And it took about 3 years. I ran about 10 half marathons and I did well, cut down my time. But it wasn't just physical activity for me. It was a mental revelation for me. It was first time when you realize that there is more potential than you think you have. First time you realize that you are self-limiting in nature. First time you realize that there is a past baggage which you're carrying and there are cages which you've built for yourself. All of that came to me on the roads. Imagine
while you were running.
Yes. And while I was training myself to run and I was going through a severe transformation in my body, I was also going through a parallel transformation in my mindset. Any kind of a sports, for the first time I realized, throws up a lot of self-awareness directly in your face. You can't run, you think you're not prepared, you think you're not ready. All of this is a mental block. So then you start training yourself physically, but then you're actually, with every physical training session, you're challenging yourself mentally. So the first point to see my own potential, first point to see that I could also self-regulate myself was marathons. The second point I remember was not that great in life. It was, I think, 2010. I was barely settled in a career and I had a very bad job experience. And not many people know this, but I was thrown out of a job. It only lasted about a few days. Didn't have much money in the pocket. Dad was retiring. I still remember I had about 250 rupees in my bank account because I was just thrown out of the job. And that's when the reality hits you that now what? You thought that being a nice guy was enough. You thought that nice parenting and nice values and just being a nice guy is all right to be successful. Absolutely not. You need to have a value proposition. You need to be something. You need to offer the world something, some skill, some craft. And that's where the identity crisis was at peak. 2010, Gaurav, for me was the year of resurrection. If that year I take it out from my life, I don't think I would have done half the things I would have done. It was the lowest point of my life. I didn't know what's going to happen to my career. All the dreams and aspirations you had as a child or a youth, you realize there's just bogus. And, you should just settle down with a small job, small brand, small mediocre life. So I gave 1 year to myself. I said, okay, everything which has been shattered, I will put it together and put it back in life. So I remember that year I had a whiteboard in my room. I would go back and write my voices and self-limiting beliefs and complexes which I had. And I see the hollowness in me. I see the lack of skill in me. And I gave myself a year to resurrect. That happened because of that bad decision, that bad job and being thrown out. I remember 19th of April 2010, I was sitting in a park and I had 250 rupees in my pocket. And that was all I had. And Dad had retired. And a middle class boy, family expects you to make money. I had no vision, no future. But yeah, that moment taught me that it can't go lower than this. If it doesn't go up, then I'll stay here for the rest of my life. But in most cases, when you embrace the low points, it starts to go up. So these are the 2 points which I think really shook me to the core.
I can so much relate with that, and especially when you come from a lower middle class family.
Yeah.
You understand the importance of what it means to have money in your pocket and the expectations that people would have of you. And I just loved it that being just a nice guy is not going to serve you.
Yeah.
When you are saying being just a nice guy, what does that signify to you? What do you mean by nice guy, nice human being, nice person? And where did you pick up this conversation for yourself?
I think it's a large part of parental conditioning, and the values are extremely important, which the family gives you. But sometimes families also give you what they got in return with their parents. So I grew up with the value system of being fair to people, respectful and kind and compassionate, and I wanted to be at least nice in my own eyes, sometimes in others' eyes also. But then comes a point you realize that the world's not functioning accordingly. Now you have a choice to preserve who you are or to become somebody else. And for many years I was stuck in that conundrum or confusion that, just do I let go of everything I am and I become someone else suddenly? And I became for many years also, and it was stressful. And then you take a U-turn. But this is a journey. For you to reclaim your own self, sometimes you have to give up yourself. And then when you realize what you've become, it does not solve a purpose, you come back home. But in the process of coming back home, you become worthy for yourself, for people, for families. That's been a full circle journey for me.
Beautiful. And in this journey, you lose something and then you gain something. You destroy something and then you give birth to something else.
Yes, absolutely.
On several occasions, you have used the word discipline. What was that moment in your life? And of course, you shared 2 instances when you were laid off, you were asked to let go, and the second instance that you spoke about. How did that change the definition that you had for discipline? And today, the kind of definition that you live with?
Gaurav, I think only the indisciplined understand discipline. Nobody's born with discipline. I mean, if of course you're an athlete or a performer who's been trained since 2 years of his age or her age, then you're conditioned like a robotic style, and you grow up with some subjective definition of discipline. But I wasn't born with that magic sword of discipline. I was highly indisciplined. And for me, when I say I was highly indisciplined, it meant that I would leave things incomplete. I wouldn't see things.
So you would start something and then you would drop the ball.
I would get infatuated by a lot of things, sometimes not pursue them, sometimes do them, leave it midway. Worst, I would freak out when things would shit hits the fan. I would quit and I wasn't a very mentally resilient child. I was the younger one of the house, was not a very healthy child. So parents learned to protect me and they learned to make my life easier, and I used it against them and on my own self. Things would get difficult and I would cry. And I would know that when I would cry mentally, emotionally, physically, whatsoever, something would happen. Protection cover would come and I would be taken out. It's an unconscious way you develop, and that eats up with your ability to give yourself hell and your own self ruthless discipline. But all shortcuts of life will someday, like shit hits the fan, will hit the fan. And when you grow up, you go outside and you realize that if you can't deal with this, then this will come back to you forever. So I had to break that pattern. And precisely why my marathon, because I realized I was mentally weak. And that's what I spoke in my TEDx also, that I was mentally weak. I was a quitter. And I would find ways to quit things, and came to a point where I didn't know how to seek help. So I said that let me throw myself into something which is physically very difficult, and hopefully my mind will learn the lesson. So for me, discipline is an achievement of a lot of indisciplined life. And this indiscipline wasn't conscious. It was built in to protect my own self because I was loving the comfort of
just not being disciplined.
Yes.
So one is the comfort of being in your comfort zone. What were the other payoffs that you had that you get when you are being indisciplined?
See, there are multiple payoffs to being indisciplined. You don't have to work on yourself, which is the hardest thing to do. You don't
Yeah,
have
and
to,
it's okay to be where I am.
You don't have to walk down the path of self-reflection. You don't have to uncover your so-called blind spots. It's just fine to live with the life of mediocrity. You can be average of averages, and in your head think that you're a rock star. You can rationalize everything which you escape from, quit or leave half-baked, that I lost the interest, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that it works in your 20s, it works in your 25, it works in your 30. The moment you start a family and potentially by the society makes you into a leader, you realize that parenting challenges you, becoming a leader challenges you. And by 30, 35, you realize that everyone's got dreams and everyone's got some aspiration.
Yeah.
And to pursue that aspiration, you will require a basic form of discipline,
Consistent effort.
consistency. Yes. And I think the fundamental thing which I didn't speak about is embracing monotony and boredom. We are built to seek new experiences, and a child in me, a younger sibling who was offered everything, at least love or attention, if not love, you just model yourself to seek newer experiences, and you don't even know that, like a mad dog, you're rushing behind just different experiences. Entertainment is not life. Embracing boredom and monotony is life.
Yeah. So, Ankit, this is very interesting because people appreciate consistency. People look up to discipline and they avoid monotony and boredom.
Yeah.
And here you are bringing both these concepts together on a common plane.
Seemingly, people think that most creative folks are behind rich experiences which are new in nature. But if you go deeper into any skill, craft, hobby, passion, sports, athletics, anything, you will realize that discipline and consistency are based upon your ability to embrace monotony. What I mean to say,
Creativity and consistency.
yes.
Now, is that what you said?
The first time I learned this was when I was acting in my acting days. To perform a show for about 45 minutes on a stage, it requires 15 rehearsals.
Wow.
At least 15 rehearsals. You have to perform the show backstage or in a studio again and again, again and again. It's monotonous. You're not getting claps. You're not getting any stroke of validation because it's not a show, but you still have to do it. Then I saw the same pattern when I started running marathons. You will run a marathon once on a Sunday at 6:30 in the morning. But before that, you will have to run mini marathons, which is monotonous, which is boredom, many times before. When I was writing books, I saw the same pattern there. A book will get published and will get you some sort of fame, validation, etc. But you still have to rise to the occasion and open the laptop, irrespective of who you are, what your mood is, 10:30 in the night, and god damn it, do it. That's monotony. Now, some people will lose interest because the process becomes so mundane and monotonous. But people, when they stick to the process, they end up going deeper into the process, and then boredom does not bother. Because you've got your focus right, goals right, clarity right, reason right. When you get all of this right, boredom is immaterial and insignificant. That for me is embracing monotony and boredom. If you look at it from an individual perspective, people where they do not have the intent to surrender themselves to a craft, and they're extracting some sort of infatuation or one night stand kind of an experience from any craft.
Yeah. So when they're not clear about why they are in that craft.
Or the resilience to surrender themselves for a longer period of time into a specific experience. If that is not there, they will switch off and zone out the moment some sort of boredom comes.
I heard it somewhere that masters spend most of their lifetime on a plateau. And whatever we are calling it, boredom or monotony, when a person goes through that space, I'm sure there's something that happens to that person. And that's the reason why one is choosing to stay in that space, which is considered to be boring, which is considered to be monotonous. Have you experienced that something is happening to you? Otherwise, why would you stay there? Even if you would like to know that craft better.
See, I think let me help you and help ourselves look at this from a point of view of achieving flow.
Yeah.
When you talk about flow or any kind of an optimal experience for the brain, you're not aware of any other thought but the craft. You don't keep a check on time, and you don't even know who you are. Your psychic entropies are not interfering into that space. So there is no boredom and monotony.
Beautiful.
If you've not surrendered yourself, if you've not become the craft for those 30, 45 minutes during a day, in the night, when you're writing, when you're dancing, when you're creating something, and there is some consciousness which is free, that freed up consciousness is getting bored because the challenge and the skill level of the craft is not at an equilibrium.
And thus you'll not be able to tap into the flow.
Yes. And most of us are not in a state of flow because we are circling around what is called as an optimal experience. Sometimes you get a flavor or a hint or a smell for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And this I realized in marathons, in gymming, and in writing. Entering an activity, you don't hit a flow. Exiting an activity, you don't hit a flow.
But in between, something
Yes,
happens where you experience,
absolutely.
where you get all the answers
Yes.
for all the questions.
Or there is complete silence because all you remember is doing something. I've seen that in gym, I've seen that in content creating, I've seen that in writing. I would enter with the state of mind, drop the defenses, and the voice is reduced. And then comes a point of time, maybe 15 minutes, 45 minutes out of a 2 hour experience, where I had no memory recall of who I was, what I was doing. I was just the act. That's flow. And there, in that act, there is no freaking space for boredom, monotony, because you don't exist. The ego doesn't exist.
So, consistency, discipline can help you to tap into your flow. And if I were to look at this so that I can understand it better, the first step is to get into the act.
Yes.
Even if there are defenses,
Absolutely.
even if there is resistance, even if you don't feel like sitting in front of the screen at 10:30 and writing consistently for 1 hour, 1.5 hours.
Showing up.
What are the other ways that could help an individual to be consistent?
I realized that consistency also is sometimes a friend of happy times. Life is okay, my mood's all right, I'm not too happy, not too sad. I can be consistent because it's predictable. I can enjoy the benefits of consistency when my temperament is okay, life is okay. Okay, but if you can be consistent in the shittiest times, then you create a milestone for yourself because the brain will look back and say, if I could freaking do it then,
I can do it today.
I can replicate it today. And this for me happened when my sister died. She died on the 21st of September. At least we cremated her on the 21st September. And got of 1st October, I started writing the 9th book. And the book was on death. And for those 9 days, I was contemplating that, will I be able to write? Will grief allow me to write? Will I be? And she was the one who gave titles for all the books. And it was a huge blow to the family, huge blow to my way of looking at how life is. Everything I learned about life and people and relationships was under siege. But I mustered up all the courage, and 1st, 2nd October,
And
we were
that's
coming.
your older sister.
Yes, my real sister. She was 7 years elder to me. And I reclaimed my consistency. I told myself that this craft has the potential to save me. This craft has the potential to pull me out of this toxic zone of falling into depression or grief. Grief will still stay. But once I finished the book, I realized that, Ankit, never in your life you've done something consistently when you were under so much stress. You've given up stuff at the drop of a hat when shit hits the fan. And today, the shit didn't hit the fan fucking fell on me. It was that bad. If you could still pull this off, which means that there is a possibility that consistency and predictability of actions can save you from anxiety and stress. The brain in most mental disorders and affliction has a tendency to fear unpredictability. And consistency is the only thing which offers some sort of predictability. And I don't know how I'm going to feel during the day, but I know that in the night, for that 1 hour, that's in my control. I know that I'm going to feel better when I write this. Entering the task might be difficult, but once I enter, I surrender, I will hit the flow and I will be refreshed. So, to answer your question, If you can be consistent in really difficult times as well, I'm telling you it's a saving grace. The activity saved you. And then I realized consistency by default might be a good friend of good times. But when you apply it in bad times as well, it becomes a savior.
You know what, Ankit? I can actually understand what you're talking about. I've experienced what it means to be consistent during the shitty times. In my mind, I've not been able to decipher, because when somebody is pulled into the ocean of sadness and sorrow and grief, the overwhelm of these emotions is so high. I'm just wondering, how can you bring in that grit, that thought that if only I could be consistent in these times, I'll be able to deal with life? What is it, something that you have not deciphered yet? And if you're willing to go deeper and help us understand, what was the process happening within that allowed you to get out of that shit, apart from that conversation that you were having in your head? But because I'm sure there are other levers that helped you to get out of that shit.
It's a fantastic question, and fortunately, I have a very nice answer to this. See, if the brain has not experienced flow, okay, the brain has not experienced disconnection from daily chores and your own self-image and who you are, and the brain's never experienced surrendering to the activity, then you won't be able to be consistent in bad times. When I was going through all of this and obsessively I was thinking about my sister's loss and the permutation combinations of the future and how ugly the future and life is going to be, worried about mom and worried about brother-in-law and my nephew, and I knew that I had fallen into a zone where nothing was under my control. The only thing I knew that, Ankit, if there is any experience, it is that disconnection. What I need to know is plug myself out. And I knew that it's possible because it had happened before. And I knew that if I start writing, automatically the process will take over, muscle memory will take over because of discipline and consistency. And for at least 30 minutes, I wouldn't be mulling and obsessing and overthinking about life. That disconnection is what you desire when you are grieving or when you're sad or you're overthinking. But we don't know how to plug ourselves out. Maybe workout could do it for someone. Singing, dancing, craft, hobby, passion, all of that. Uplifting the quality of your experiences just disconnects you from the brain waves which are not that positive in nature. Wow. But for that, your brain should have experienced flow before. And I think that's also the reason, Gaurav, why most people give up hobby, passions, and crafts in crisis situations. Because if they've not seen the depth of those activities and what those activities can do, it's like substance abuse.
Yeah.
Substance takes you to an alternative state of mind.
Yeah.
You do a craft nicely, it'll take you to goddammit alternative state of mind. But substance is easy, but craft is difficult.
Yeah.
If you've seen that alternative state of mind organically because of a craft, you will want to come back to it. If you aren't able to, you'll have withdrawal symptoms. And in grief and sadness and extreme emotions, that experience and you remember, and I need to get back to this, and hence I need to get back to the process of discipline.
So profound, Ankit, so profound. I'll tell you what happened while I was listening to you. When you said that you were in that ocean of grief, dealing with the loss of somebody, not somebody, a part of you. And then saying to yourself that no matter what, if I could only be consistent in this moment, I'll be able to deal with any kind of shit in my life as well. That's a thought process. And then I question myself that, no, if it's as simple as that, what Ankit is talking about, then why do motivation fizzle out after some point in time, right? Because this is a motivational speaker speaking in your head. So, I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to do it. When the moment something tragic hits you, you chicken out. And then the next step, the next experience that you shared is dissociation, disidentifying yourself. So continue to watch what's happening in front of you. I know that I've lost somebody. that I'm a part of, and yet there is some karma that I have to adhere to. On one hand, we have consistency. On the other hand, there's a concept of letting go. Where is that sweet spot where consistency meets, marries your ability to let go?
I don't know how to nicely craft out a simple answer to this. Both are part of your internal world. So when somebody looks at you, they can look at you and say, "Oh, you left this again." But you would know internally, no, it is not that again. This time letting go is because my ego was holding on to it. So I'll give you an example. I'd let go of my 11th book. I started writing the book with a very nice, strong, creative idea. I lost the plot, and my ego was writing the book. So I was applying consistency to it. I was still rising to the occasion 3 times a week, and I was writing something, but I wasn't happy. Okay, so if you stop here, your body and your mind will give you all signs. The flow wasn't there. I was dragging the book. Okay, it took me a while to realize that, Ankit, this is ego writing. This is writing because now you're an author. This is identity writing. This is self-image writing. What will the world think? I have to put out a social media post. I have to complete the book because I've written 10 books and 11th book can't be incomplete. So I tagged along till a point of time where I couldn't do it anymore because it was becoming a burden. And that's the difference. You let go when it's emotionally dragging you down and it's pulling you down. So I had to bury the book. So I buried the book without apologies. And then I told myself that, no, this is wrong application of consistency. Just because I'm disciplined and in the process I've mastered, I still need to be true to myself. So when you are not being true to yourself and the thought and the purity of thought with which you started, and you're still being consistent, you're doing ego lifting, ego driving, ego writing, ego dancing. Ego has interfered. That's the time when you let go and you drop it. Okay, it's time to bury it.
How do you know something is ego?
Great. It's heavy, and you always, if you've learned to feel it inside, anything which is not coming out of a space of ego will feel effortless and feel light in the head.
Ease.
Yes. You wouldn't even know, shit, how did this happen?
Something is happening through you.
It's happening through you. Yeah. When you're pushing yourself consistently every single day, and you have to give multiple reasons, and those reasons are not internal. I want to do this because I believe in this idea as an internal reason. I want to do this because somebody else will think about me that, oh, he's now unable to write, his flair is over, his flow is over, his time is over. Those are induced reasons by the ego to put you back into that activity, and it will never last. The more internally aligned you are to the origin of why you started doing something, the higher are the chances that you will see it to closure. I couldn't do marathons when I was caught in the trap of ego. I couldn't write, I couldn't act, and I did horribly wrong in injustice to falling for that trap. And then I came out of it and I said the reason for creation is only the need to create. If there is any other goddamn reason,
a desire to create.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Innate burning desire to create, maybe go deeper in your potential, maybe create something which you haven't, which is beyond you, which is beyond your limitations. That.
So deeper question is, every now and then, it's important, it's an imperative to take a pause and reflect. Why am I doing what am I doing? Running a foundation, a charity, running marathons, writing books, being consistent with your health, being extra close to your daughter. If you look at your life, what has been your driving force? And what do you think? How has that changed from when you started this game called life to where you are?
I think I'm going to divide this into 2 parts. The first driving force was I desperately wanted to be good for something.
Good for something.
Yes. Something.
And that was a counter declaration to a question, am I good enough?
Yes. Absolutely. It was a self-worth issue, self-doubt issue, it was good for nothing issue. It was lost and found and identity crisis, etc., etc. Average of the averages. Too much past baggage to carry. Came to a point, didn't want to carry any baggage. So I said, let me bloody be good for something.
Yeah, every day I wake up with this question: Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I relevant enough?
Absolutely.
Will I be able to do it?
So those were the challenges. Okay. So for many years, I ran marathons, I did acting, I did charity, and I'll keep my hand on the heart. I didn't do it for anybody. I was figuring my things out. I did it because it gave me some sort of meaning, some sort of identity, uh, some sort of craft. Okay. When I buried that
To
back-
deal with that question.
Yes, to deal with that question. And it was a great answer. Sometimes external validations are great answers to the internal mayhem which you're carrying. Okay. One day I remember having this conversation that I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
That voice in the head which always tells you that are you really worthy of this? Is there self-worth enough? I remember one day I said, yeah, 35 years, the same question. So what if I tell myself, okay, I'm not worthy? So what? What the fuck will happen?
Yeah.
And I didn't have an answer. It was a hollow, haunting voice which just carried on. And then I reflected back, said, no, you've done well. So stop being harsh on yourself now. Then the second driving force starts.
Really, you felt that way? I can't even relate to you,
Yes.
Ankit, on that front.
It was very,
because
very uplifting.
I've always seen you so confident, so sure of yourself.
Yeah, when you're not sure, you either learn to be sure, you learn to fake that you're sure. I was the latter one, but that was the I think the interval of my movie where in the last couple of years I stopped fighting the battle of self-worth.
What was that moment? How did you come to that point?
It was just a random moment where I realized that it's a voice in the head, sometimes silent, sometimes loud, where you keep questioning yourself. And every activity or task you do is to prove your worth to something.
Were you tired of that voice, or
Yes.
something else happened?
Yes. I was tired. I had written about 8 books. And then that moment came when I thought that this wasn't even in the charts. This wasn't even a dream. If a random boy growing up in Hindi neighborhood to a lower middle class family in one bedroom house could write 8 books, I think if I die tomorrow, I'll die happy. I said, I don't need to fight this battle of worth.
Can I convert that as a formula? Only if I have accomplished something, only then I'll be able to get to a point where I don't have to deal with this question, am I good enough? Or there's something else to that?
No, there is something else. The answer is valid. It depends how you define accomplishment. I could define 8 books as accomplishment, but my accomplishment was the ability to create something ground up, which is mine, and it came out of my subconscious. That's potential. So definition of accomplishment changes. And that was the tipping point. And the second driving force starts. Now I want to do stuff because I can do stuff. And I want to enjoy doing stuff without the burden of proving it to myself, to anybody, without the burden of creating a report card for myself. Is this success or a failure? Now I just want to create because there is such joy in creating.
So a shift from I have to because I have to prove myself and I am good enough to a space where I want to create it because I can.
Yes.
I want to enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the difference between, I wrote an article sometime back that how obsessed we are to become a creator, to author, to doctor, to engineer. So this and ter is a tag on the identity. But the moment we get obsessed with writing and acting and dancing, your life changes because then you're talking about being. You're talking about the ing in life, which is always going to be in process and continuous momentum.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
learning to differentiate between both is keeping a check on the ego. That is the author writing or is just
It's
writing?
being written.
Yes.
It's being written.
It's being written.
Yeah. So beautiful, so profound. So profound. So let's shift gears here, Ankit, if you permit. In your current role, you are the Chief Learning Officer.
Yeah.
And I remember when we spoke, when you became the Chief Learning Officer, there was a different joy, there was a sense of pride in your voice, there was a sense of accomplishment. What do you think from being a CLO -1 and then becoming the CLO? What shifts did you have to go through that allowed you to claim this position with humility, with joy, with a sense of enjoyment?
Was an interesting part of my life. I think for some years I was self-limited. I felt that maybe I didn't have whatever I needed to be the CLO, or maybe I was too comfortable. And honestly, nobody believed in me either. Sometimes you are caged in a box and you start living in a cage which the environment has made for you. For me, this decision coincided with the battle of self worth, which I just buried. So if I buried all of this, then let me just rise again and tell myself that I should be able to pull this off. Of course, there is a mindset shift, and I realized that I had a very sound business acumen, which I'd lost confidence on. It came back to me. I had a very sound decision making ability to spend money, which came back to me.
It's like your relationship with money.
Yes, it was very sound, at least professionally. But for many years, I hadn't really utilized my business acumen. And irrespective of what role do you do, every CXO role is dependent upon a business acumen. You have to run a shop or a process or a function. You have to make decisions which are financial in nature, which will have impact. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine. He said that we live in an age where a 22-year-old can start a founding company or become a founder and could be a CEO and has the potential and the ability to stand in front of an investor and ask for $1 billion. He said, I'm touching 30, 35 maybe, and I don't need to believe that I don't have that skill.
Yeah, it's like, who are you to disown yourself?
Who are you to disown yourself? Absolutely. And then it became almost like a life lesson for me. He said, no, I am going to. First 6 months of a CXO job were difficult because you have to call the shots. I had to build a team from ground up with 0 employees. I have to lay down the entire strategy myself and execute it. Of course, the firm's been really, really helpful. My team's been really now helpful. But it's a great platform to test yourself. First 6 months, I had massive stress because you've been conditioned not to take decisions which does not require validation. This was the first time I was told that you decide, and I didn't have to look up to anywhere. And it's empowering, but it's also a shitty space because you're always calculating the risk of failure. So it's fine. And the risk of failure actually puts pressure on you to take thorough decisions which you can justify in front of a CEO, in front of a COO, asking money. I said it's like raising funds. If I'm a 20-year-old, I need to bloody well justify every penny. And that's what I've done in the last few years of my new role.
What was happening inside Ankit before he took the plunge of claiming the new position, new role in new organization?
See, I think it's a mix of 3. But there's an interesting narrative which binds all of them. Your ability to not trust yourself also comes from excessive comfort. If you haven't seen the world, you don't want to see the world, so you don't want to test yourself. And so you're very
tried and tested. Let me just do what I've been doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that hinges very closely on complacency.
Yeah.
And then you also have nobody to tell you that, listen, it's not big shit. Okay? If you could do this, you could do that. And then every time I kept thinking about, it's a big role, it's a big responsibility. I looked back and said, Ankit, you've come from a 1-bedroom house. You've come from a mediocre background.
You have held 250 rupees in your pocket once.
And there cannot be a life lower than that. First year I might fail, but I'm ready for that, and it's going to be a beautiful, graceful failure. Second year of CLO-ship will be better than the first year.
Yeah.
I will build something with my own hands.
Beautiful.
I promised myself that I will build a team which I always wanted to be a part of and I was never given. I will create an ecosystem, a culture, at least in my team. And I hope this goes out to social media and people see it. I'm proud of what I've created in terms of my people, not in skills, it's secondary, in terms of character and relationships. You meet my people and you'd realize this is not a corporate team. This is a close-knit team which is built upon values, tied with the hunger to do something. And that's how all of these people have been hired.
And I just love the choice of your words when you said graceful failure. If only I could live my life from that space, I think life would be such beautiful, because then we'll start to look at everything as grace, as a blessing, and a stepping stone, as you mentioned. Ankit, you've already spoken about your relationship with money, which are few of the most important traits to claim the CXO position. Your ability to make decisions and stand to them. What do you think? What are the other traits that an individual needs to develop before they start to prepare themselves for the CXO role? Or they claim that, okay, let me just play this game now.
See, one of the things which people have to do if they're preparing for a CXO role is they have to stop thinking like a subject matter expert. All our lives, if you've made a career decision which is based upon love for a subject, could be psychology, L&D, coding, love with tech or love with finance, that needs to end. Your attachment is going to be too binding for you. We all started careers as the love of training, and becoming a corporate trainer was a dream. But corporate trainers don't make CEOs and CXOs and CHROs. You've got to run a shop. You've got to run a practice. You have to have a view on business. So you have to let go of your identity. Okay. The moment you let go of an identity and past validation and past success, which you're holding too dear, I can bet my last 17 years of corporate existence that I'm one of the best trainers India would have seen. Okay. And I'm typically not very pompous about my skills, but this skill, I can tell you, undisputed, one of the best India would have created. Okay. I had to let go of that.
Wow.
If I need to be a trainer, par excellence, then I will only be a trainer. I will not be a CXO. So I had to let go. You love it so much, and you know that you're known for this. You have a following. People respect you. You respect yourself. You know that this is a craft which comes naturally to you. Everything which you've told yourself for all these years, you have to let go of that. Letting go is being ready for something big. And that big then is your leader's vision. When the leaders who hired me, they spoke to me, I saw that there is a value match and you're sold. When you're sold with their vision, when you're sold with their interest and their commitment to what you want to do, that's the second marriage you need to have. The third marriage, of course, is developing a mindset to run a business. We're a cost center. Every learning and development department or human resource department is a cost center. We will incur costs. So you have to apply your business hat to get the best value for every penny which you will ask for. And if you see, all of that has nothing to do with your love of classrooms. Nothing to do with your love of training. But in virtue of that, you end up building a practice which has people in it. People
who might have trainers and facilitators, maybe better than you.
Absolutely. And the objective is to make somebody better than you. At this point of time, I tell my team that please allow me to train you, because that's the best craft I have. And allow me to offer it to you. And give me space in your journey to become a trainer, because I think that's one of the rare places I will be able to add value in life, in your life.
So it's like every time when you're saying yes to something new, you have to let go of something which might be very close to you. You have to say no to something that you might be in love with.
So, and I'm going to pause here and give credit to a person. He gave me this advice.
And who's that person?
Rohin. And he gave me that advice that if you have to become something, in this field, you will have to let go and give up the trainer's hat.
And he's definitely one of the finest
He is.
facilitators,
Yes.
coaches I know of.
Yeah. And I knew that it was a tough journey for me. But we all, like kids, want to do what gratifies us most. And it gives us instant gratification.
Yeah.
And we gravitate towards what either comes naturally or what gives us excellent strokes or validation. Blocking that and deferring gratification, that now gratification should come from looking back in life and saying, I built a practice, I made solutions available for 10,000 people.
Yeah.
That gratification versus the gratification of an 8-hour classroom.
Beautiful.
You've got to shift that, but that gratification will take 2 years,
Yeah.
and it has come now.
Ankit, let's take a little deeper dive into this. And I would like to further accentuate on the importance of having people in your life who have made a significant difference in your life. What process did you go through to embrace these beautiful pearls of advice coming from someone? And in that advice, you know that you have to kill. You have to kill something that has served you for the longest period of time.
Fair point. You know what? Incidentally, what happened in this case was when I was young, which started about my career in L&D. At that point of time, also, I had this dream in the mind that whatever field I'm pursuing, I will see it through the end. Okay, so if the pinnacle or the peak of L&D is becoming a chief learning officer, so the seed was planted. The reason was very strong. And when I was going through these experiences, and when he and I,
You know what? Now I can see the sweet spot of consistency and letting go. Yeah, please go ahead. So sorry.
then when this happened, I was at a point where I was mentally ready because I had wanted it. So I don't. One hand, I don't want to be second in command. I want to touch that point of a chief learning officer, head a learning division, start something on my own. And yet, I had to give up things. I had to challenge the comfort. If the reason is strong, and you're not trying to become a CLO because it's fashionable, you're trying to become something because you want to just maximize the canvas on which value can be created.
And all the trades that have been gifted to you to tap into them, because you mentioned that you had the business acumen, you had a relationship with finance that you wanted to take it to the next level, your ability to take ownership. Yeah.
And when you apply all of that to a larger than life purpose, and you just change the size of the canvas you're operating at, it becomes easy then. But things have to come together.
Yeah.
Things have to integrate to a point where you realize that time has come. If you let go of the time, you will never get an opportunity again. So it's not a one night decision.
Yeah.
It's not just one conversation. And I think it's true for every field. The reason why people who start careers together but they fizzle out, or the funnel at the end is narrow, is because the differentiating mindset is that clarity of how a career needs to grow is extremely important. Even if you just have a vague clarity, I'm telling you that if in your dreams you see yourself after 15 years at a certain place, your decisions which you take today would be subconsciously governed by that.
Yeah.
You might not be able to call it out and justify it yourself, but you know that will this help? If there is a goddamn chance at becoming a CLO or a CXO after 10 years, will this help or not?
Yeah.
But if you haven't thought of ever, then it's like taking a road trip and not knowing where to go.
So let's further take another lane forward. We have been talking about consistency. We have been talking about the importance of disciplines in life and the kind of people that you're working with currently, the Gen Zs of the world. One of the words that they celebrate is hustle.
Yeah.
For them, for as long as it's kicking the adrenaline rush in them, they'll be very comfortable doing the job that they are into. And in the next possible good opportunity, they'll say goodbye to you. How do you bring this together as the CLO of an organization and then dealing with a lot of people who are the Gen Zs of the world? They have a different ways of looking at the world. They have a different way of being in the world.
See, my view is there is very simple. Okay, generations will always be different. When Amitabh Bachchan's mother in the movies would say that "Zamana kharab hai," we're saying the same thing. Okay, so there is the pace of change and the mindset would have increased, but mindsets in generations have always been different. Okay, we're coming to Gen Z. They have a lot of things going in their favor.
Yeah.
Awareness and confidence, and sometimes clarity, and sometimes just the candidness to
Information.
walk out of things.
Information that they have.
Yeah,
They are
absolutely.
much clearer about what they want, what
Absolutely.
they don't want.
Absolutely.
And then also, they're not operating from the survival mode that
Absolutely.
we have.
So risk-taking ability is really high.
Very, very high.
But the catch here is, and at least that's how I plan to run my team. What they don't have is consistency. What they don't have is discipline.
Yeah.
What they don't have is embracing monotony. They might be asking the right questions.
Yeah.
We ask the question such as the purpose of life and why am I here when we were 30, 35. But people who are 18, 16, 20, 25, they're already asking the question, what is the purpose of life?
Yeah.
But that question's killing them because in the mad pursuit of finding an answer and not getting an answer, they end up giving up stuff.
Yeah.
Not knowing that purpose won't come to you like a butterfly and sit on your shoulder. You'll have to fucking hunt for it, chase for it for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
And then someday you'll look back and say, oh, I've lived a purposeful life. I have those answers to offer. So a connection, at least my connection with teams is very clear that performance evaluation and my view on looking at them and their growth is built upon sincerity and consistency of effort.
How do you bring these two together? One is your own commitment to assisting people, serving people, live a purposeful life. The journey that you are on self-awareness. And then, of course, the organization would have certain demands from you. Where you are talking about performance, appraisals, giving them feedback that might not land well for them. How do you bring these two together?
See, my connecting link here is talk to people about the process of what they've done and how they've done.
Okay. Not about them, about what they have done. Okay. So
Make the process very clear. I have set difficult conversations and I let go of certain difficult conversations very easily. The difficult conversations which I let go is you make a mistake, we do something wrong, I let go. Okay, why? Because I check if the process taken to achieve that outcome, task, or a job was sincere, was dignified enough. And if yes, it's fine. I'll consume the failure. I'll consume the mistake. From a small mistake to a big one. And that to my mind is psychological safety, where we are monitoring how people are building themselves up. If somebody is wanting to deliver a training workshop, I tell them that I will give you hell when I train you. I will be ruthless in my reviews, but that will make you into some solid facilitator. So process needs to be right. When somebody is doing a walkthrough or we're talking subject or content or a design, I talk to them about how have you prepared for this? Don't show me the outcome. Talk to me about the process of preparation. And if I don't like the process of preparation, or it's last minute, or it's crisis driven, or it's just too shoddy, then I know that the outcome will not be aligned to the process. So when you bring people to a track where you monitor the process, which is what I've done in my life, you automatically make people consistent. And beyond a point, you'll realize that they will come to you and say that, Ankit, I didn't follow the process right. I didn't do the justice to the craft here.
Yeah.
And hence I know that outcome either, even if it's successful, is a fluke.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that next time I don't know how to create and replicate that success. So if the brain doesn't know, and if people don't know how did they achieve to an excellence, then it is a fluke. Then you're waiting either to pray to God or just rising on a good day and delivering something.
Yeah.
So consistency is being aware of the process.
So have you been in a situation, Ankit, where you were challenged and where you found yourself out of any argument? And being at a senior position, you had to absorb, you had to drink a bit of either a sense of lack of competence or a bit of embarrassment, or a bit that, shucks, man, what should I be doing? It's like biting your tongue.
So not at the work front in terms of delivering a workshop or running
Yeah.
a process, but in terms of a relationship that's
Yeah.
happened. Last year, it's almost a case study now. I spoke to my team and I asked them if there are feedback. We typically take feedback from all the team members, and they also give an opinion to me about my own self. So we asked that, what do you want me to start doing, stop doing, continue doing? Okay. And
Swallowing your own pill.
yeah, absolutely. And the first guinea pig is me. So two of my team members who are now very close to me, one of them said, Ankit, you create unnecessary panic. And the other said that we are scared of you.
Yeah.
And my fundamental belief system, Gaurav, is that you can't do well when you're always scared. You can't do good when you're worrying about somebody panicking and managing
You
his
just
panic.
spoke about psychological safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I said, I can't be doing this. This is not the kind of life I wanted. It's not the kind of life I want to give. And I promised them that I'm going to change this thing around. So I didn't have an argument. I didn't have no justification. Instead, they're feeling what they're feeling. Feelings are absolute. If they would have been thinking something else, I would debated and argued with them cognitively or intellectually. But they're feeling scared.
Yeah.
And God knows how many more mistakes will happen because they're scared and intimidated. So they don't need to be. And that day and today, I complete a year. And last week, I checked with those two team members on a call that, do you still think that I create panic? Are you scared of me? They said, absolutely no. And it was a victory for me. It took me a year. It's my past baggage, my own aggression, my own ambition, sometimes, bias for action, sometimes how your career for the last few years has been interferes into how people want to be treated.
Yeah.
And in your head, you might think that, listen, I'm this passionate guy, but your passion can't burn people out. You're passionate for your own sake. Your passion and your penchant for aggression and driving things very quickly can't bloody interfere into somebody's peace of mind. I don't think today, I want to claim this, that nobody needs to be in a job with any kind of an insecurity or any kind of a fear. Gen Z won't take it. You spoke about Gen, they won't take it. They are too aware of their mental health, maybe a little bit more aware than they should be.
Yeah.
And they need to balance the understanding out, stress and pressure and stretch is very important. But I think they've got a radar to sense toxicity.
Yeah.
And they've got a radar to also check that, listen, this shit I don't want in my life.
Yeah.
And
They're clear about that.
They're very clear about that. And they'll walk away. And it'll be a slap on your face. So you better sort your game out. Respect them for respecting their own boundaries.
Yeah.
Which you and I never learned. It was all right in our careers to somebody abuse us in a sales target meeting, and we would never walk out because we would know that it's a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
This is how...
Which is not normal today.
Yes.
Which is not normal today.
And that shit doesn't make you strong. We rationalize it by saying that this is how men are built up, this is how the real world is. This is
No, it doesn't work that way.
It's all fictitious.
And where do you find a balance between the necessary tension and the extra stress that might cause burnout in the team that you've been working with?
See, it's a difficult one.
It's like walking on a tightrope. Yeah. On one hand, you have to maintain the necessary tension because unless there is tension, there would not be tightrope.
Absolutely.
And if it's loosened up too much, and if it's tight that much, anyways, it won't be there.
Yeah. It's very similar to a neurosurgeon's judgment. When to operate, when not to operate. Should I just open the brain up or should I just let go? It's a neurosurgeon's conundrum. So I believe that you need to have a very strong handle on what's the untapped potential of an individual, number one. Okay. So I think as a person, it's my strength. I've had a very, very strong, successful track record of hiring right people. In the last 17 years...
Engaging people.
Yes. In the last and a very successful track record of investing in relationships. In the last 17 years of me now working, Gaurav, only one or two people have left me because they didn't enjoy the working equation I'd built.
That's something that I need to learn from you.
There is a person in my team right now. Let me quote the person, Shreya Jain. Okay. In April 2024, we'll complete 8 years of working together.
Wow.
In 2024, in this century, you would not see a working relationship for 8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
This is my third year in the firm. I've had zero attrition, barring one.
Wow. Now, the first thing when you're talking about 8 years, I have somebody, we are working together, Preeti Verma, We've been working together for 8 years. And of course, with all the ups and the downs that we experience, there are arguments, there are difference in opinions, and yet we know that we stand with each other, right? And there are instances where people have worked in this organization for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And so, yeah.
So, and the chemistry or the moot point there is that you'll have to find a sweet spot in a relationship where you can contribute something to a person's life. And my fundamental litmus test is very simple. I don't think jobs before hiring. I don't think sales pitches at the time of exit interviews. My clear value or test there is what is good for a person's life.
Simple.
And it has never gone wrong. There was a case, this is a very close friend of mine now, Sohaib Tahir, he worked for me, and he had 2 job opportunities before joining us, and I evaluated both for him without selling anything. He said, what is right for you in this context of life? If I can help the other person selflessly, unconditionally, take a right decision which is right for him,
Beautiful.
Our job is done.
Yeah, and the second question that I ask myself is, am I growing in this relationship with the person? Is the person growing?
Yes.
And not only as a professional, but as a human being.
Yes.
Right?
And sorry, going back to the previous question where you spoke about stress and how much tension to be given. It's a conversation you must have in relationships. And I tell people that, listen, I will push people. I pushed myself. I don't know any other way. Okay. You expect mentoring for me. You expect me to do something because sometimes there's somebody who's joined our team. Her only demand was that, Ankit, please coach me. Okay. And I think it comes from a space of admiration when people see somebody from
the poster
minus
boy,
in the number line.
The poster boy.
Yeah, maybe the poster boy. They said that if this guy could surely do it, then maybe I could also do it. I know this person. He's just like me. And, he was also minus in life and he's come to plus. So, and that's how stories connect. So somebody came to me and said that I want to be coached by you. He said, please, I would invest everything I have. And like you taught me, he said, I will give 101%, but provided you give 100%. That's my only condition.
1% more than what you
yes.
will give. Yeah.
And that's what I tell people that, listen, your effort and my effort will be more only if you give your best and I will give you hell. It will not be easy working with me. I will not be bothered about outcomes. I will be bothered about how you bring yourself to work. I don't have anything else to give. I have my discipline, my consistency, my own hustle of becoming something, and I can only offer that to you, provided you need it. But working with me will be very challenging. I will be respectful. I will give you tough love.
And I would challenge you.
Yes, and I will not shrug away from having difficult conversation, but that's my love. If you can see my love as that, I'm telling you, we will grow together. If not, you will flush out automatically.
Yeah. But I'm on the a little bit taking a detour. How does it feel to be a celebrity? I mean, no, on a very serious note, right? How does it feel to be on the wall of Oxford bookstore? People are looking at
crossword will kill you.
A crossword, right? And then people are asking for autographs. You have enjoyed that celebrity status.
Yeah.
How does it feel?
Unapologetic. If given a chance, all of us would have that kind of a life. It started with addiction. It became a burden. And now I'm moving towards a space where maybe I'm indifferent to it.
When you're saying unapologetic, reminds me of Shah Rukh Khan. How does it feel to be a superstar? Shah Rukh said, you know what? I'm not going to give up on this for anything in my life.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's a childhood dream for anyone. I sometimes feel that I deserve more. Why should I not? But yes, it just definitely started with, middle class values. And if you have a huge void of appreciation and accomplishment, then you don't fucking know how to take it. You think that it doesn't relate to you. It's not for you. It's tukka. It's fluke. But then when you reconcile that, no, it's hard earned and I value it and I wouldn't trade anything else for this, then it's a good feeling. But at the same point of time, you have to remember your center. You became what you became, and all the love which the books got is because of those ugly nights, is because of those that craft.
Yeah.
You can call it divine grace, or you can call it spirituality, you can call it Saraswati ki kripa.
Or I think
You can't forget that.
the hard work that you have done, consistently writing 10,000 words on daily basis, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and hitting the gym on daily basis, making sure that you run 10 marathons, half marathons or marathons, right? Half marathons in 3 years is not at all an easy feat to get onto. And then as a result of that, if you are a poster boy, you bloody deserve it.
Why not?
You bloody enjoy it. It is possible only when you mentioned that you have been able to center yourself. You mentioned it's possible only when you have been consistent, you have been true to your craft, when you are taking a deeper dive
In your own self.
in boredom and monotony and in your own self. If you were to share quick productivity hacks, what would those be?
I think for the sake of simplicity, I'll share one. And let me put a use case example to it. One of my very proud achievements is becoming a morning person. Okay, very simple accomplishment. A lot of people would have done it, but it was difficult for me. And I realized it was difficult because the longest part of my life, I told myself, I'm not a morning person. Okay, so I started with this productivity hack. So I don't need to become a morning person tomorrow. So if on an average I was getting up at 8 o'clock, I said that tomorrow I'll start getting up at 7:30. Okay, 7:30 for 2 days. Then I got up at 7:30 for 2 days. It's the next 3 days I will get up at 7:15 and just stay up, make myself a cup of
One
chai.
step at a time.
One step at a time. Gaurav, I took baby steps, and in 30 days I was getting up at 4:45 a.m.
Wow.
I kept cutting down 15 minutes. I figured that my ego finds it too heavy to hit the gym at 4:45 because you have to get up from the bed, target number one. You have to handle the alarm clock, target number two. You have to get ready, feed yourself, do the daily chores, and go to the gym. Too many targets. My ego will find out too many ways to just cope up, not cope up. So, okay, let me give myself such small targets that ego does not interfere.
This is really interesting that how our ego, at least my ego, continues to interfere every time when I give the intention to the universe that I would like to become a better human being. I would like to be a better in my health. I would like to get better in my thought process. I would like to be a better friend. I would like to be a better son. I would like to be a better podcast host. The interference from the ego is so high. As a shucks man, humse na ho paega. It's like your relationship with being a morning person. For me, it's like I don't even attempt here. That's not me.
But, there's a flip side to it also. If you look at the nature of ego interference, the more it interferes, the more you learn to resist. If it does not interfere, you don't learn to resist. The more you learn to resist, the better you become as an individual. We can't stop ego's interference. It's basically all the noises in the head which are there.
And you have to deal with that.
You have to deal with that. You have to become friends with that.
How do you deal with this statement when it says that man proposes and God disposes? How do you deal with this
Very
statement?
simple. You propose again. You keep proposing till the time God doesn't listen. What choice do you have? You can't stop proposing. If the right time, right opportunity, right moment comes, you'll achieve 1% of it. Do something about it. God can dispose my plan to become a movie star. God can't dispose a plan for me to write a book, one page, one line today, right now. There's something always in your control, right? The point is when you start in your head, you think, oh God, I have to fucking write a book. No, you have to write one goddamn line. Which Lord will interfere in that? No.
Just take one step at a time.
Just baby steps.
One bite at a time, and you'll be able to enjoy an elephant. Thank you so much, Ankit. Always, always, always an inspiration to talk to you, to learn the ocean in which you are swimming right now. I would not call it a swimming pool because swimming pool is for people like me. You have a complete ocean at your disposal. So thank you so much. An absolute pleasure listening to you as always.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for having me here.
So, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a wonderful listener to this beautiful conversation that I had with Ankit. So, in case you would like to know more about how could you be more consistent in your life, how could you pick up one thread at a time and continue to weave the complete canvas that you would want for yourself, what are the quick productivity, consistency hacks that you may want to implement in your life, or take a pause and relook at those defining moments in your life that have helped you become who you are? Or what are the tricks that can help you to move to the next level in your own profile, in your own role? If you are a CXO -1, it's time to shift your gears and claim the CLO position, the CXO position, and what it means to work with Generation Z. Please take some time to rate and review and follow us on YouTube, on Apple Podcast, on Spotify Podcast. And I look forward to meeting you again next week with yet another interesting, thoughtful conversation. Take care of yourself. Stay tuned. Stay happy. Continue to tap into your flow. Thank you.